Seattle. When you look at it, you see its beautiful buildings, its beautiful sky. You see innovation, but there's so much more to it. There's a culture. There's something special. So much so that Amazon is actually moving their headquarters there. But there's a big question. Why? To really get a good understanding of what makes Seattle special, let's look at some facts. According to the 2020 census from the City of Seattle's website, Seattle has a population of over 737,000 inhabitants. Of that number, 630,000 are above the age of 18. As of 2016, 63% of the population has a bachelor's degree or higher. The median household income is over $83,000. Seattle has an estimated 567,000 jobs with a poverty rate of around 11.5%. About 351,503 out of the 367,806 houses are occupied, according to the Census Bureau in 2019. As far as land use, Seattle has an area of 53,113 acres with about 11.6 people per acre. Additionally, 5,000 acres are dedicated to parks and open spaces which are owned by the city. It's also important to note that 97.5% of the population lives within a quarter mile of a transit stop, which ranks Seattle 7th out of the 25 largest U.S. cities in transit service with a score of 59. Seattle is also ranked 6th out of the U.S. largest cities for walkability with a score of 74. According to CityData.com, Seattle is known to have many different industries, such as commercial shipping, the aerospace industry, especially with Boeing, Amazon, food processing, and manufacturing of transportation equipment. When it comes to commercial shipping, Seattle-Tacoma International Airport has 16 cargo carriers. Additionally, the commercial shipping takes advantage of Elliott Bay, a deep water port in the city. Elliott Bay is the 5th largest container port in the U.S. and the 20th largest container port in the world, with the ability to fit ships up to 1,400 feet in length. Lastly, in commercial shipping, there are 2 transcontinental railroads and more than 170 motor freight carriers. Let's take a look at the sustainability history of Seattle. According to Port of Seattle's article titled 50 Years of Sustainability at the Port, in 1988 there was the first formalized collaboration with the Muckleshoot tribe for a voluntary fish and wildlife enhancement project to lower consumption of animal products. Next, in 1991, a company named Sustainable Seattle was formed with the goal of making sustainability work community-owned. They have over 30,000 members and 25 community organizers, with over a dozen gatherings a year according to their website. They also have a project called Interweave, with the goal of weaving resources, support, collaborations, and capacity towards regional sustainability. This consists of multiple projects relating to the ocean, housing, quality of life, education, resource management, and more, to become more sustainable as a city. In 1993, one of the largest projects relating to sustainability in Seattle started when the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport launched its waste minimization and recycling program. The project most recently reported its results in 2019 with recycling 2,000 tons of paper, cardboard, etc., 18,900 gallons of used cooking oil into biodiesel fuel, 20 tons of electronics, and composted 1,400 tons of organic waste. In 2005, the Port of Seattle conducted a Puget Sound Maritime Air Emissions Inventory, which was the first emissions inventory in the U.S. to include a report of inventory of greenhouse gases, diesel, particulate matter, and several other maritime-related sources. This led to air pollutant emissions decreasing up to 97% depending on the type of pollutant and 69% for fine particles. In 2017, the Port of Seattle also agreed to greenhouse gas reduction goals for 2030 in alignment with the Paris Climate Agreement. Most recently, in 2020, the Commission approved a 10-year supply of renewable natural gas and will reach its 2030 goal of reducing carbon emissions by 50% 10 years earlier than expected. Lastly, in 2020, construction of 13 acres at port number T117, the largest habitat restoration in the lower Duwamish, achieves 35% of the Port Century Agenda's goals for habitat restoration. Let's dive into Seattle's social and economical plans. Seattle is a targeted city for climate change, which is an incentive to make the city more sustainable. In September of this year, Mayor Bruce Harrell announced the funding proposal that would invest $6.5 million this year towards reducing greenhouse emissions, supporting community resilience to climate change, and increasing net zero affordable housing.
Fight for tomorrow, we have to also think about the impacts today. And therein lies the challenge. But the challenge that my community partners and my community leaders are.
At 6, the dark haze lingers over Washington state tonight as wildfire smoke billows into the sky. Flames forcing families from their homes, shutting down highways, canceling class, and even shutting off power for some.
With growing concerns for such climate change disasters such as wildfire smoke and extreme heat, a social plan that this money is going towards is actually $2.4 million to develop resilience hubs in Seattle. These resiliency hubs are to help ensure communities are supported in preparing themselves for these disasters such as wildfire smoke and extreme heat. Seattle is working towards community resilience to these events, climate change mitigation, emergency management and response, and social equity. Another $2 million in this plan is going towards the number of city-funded affordable housing projects. This investment quote from Jamie House in 2022, in multifamily affordable housing electrification, avoids installing new fossil fuel systems that will lock newly created affordable housing and its residents into decades of climate pollution. An economic plan towards a more sustainable society in Seattle is part of the Green New Deal. To quote Sengupta 2022, Seattle's Green New Deal is a forward-looking step towards the goal of the city becoming a climate pollution-free city. This initiative aims to create jobs and herald an equitable transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy by prioritizing investments in communities historically most hammered by economic, racial, and environmental injustices. Let's look into Seattle's environmental sustainability initiatives. Seattle is a city that prioritizes environmental sustainability and climate action. The local government and city council is actively working with citizens of Seattle to develop a plan and policies that optimize the well-being of people while minimizing environmental detriment. The Seattle Climate Equity Community Task Force further acknowledges that climate change impacts Black, Indigenous, and communities of color disproportionately. Therefore, pro-environmental initiatives and action are undoubtedly a priority towards a better future for social equity in the city of Seattle. The 2020 Strategic Climate Action Plan, known as the SCAP, is a detailed written plan by the King County Action Team on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and provides a comprehensive outline for preparing for climate change. Did you know that according to this plan, 3 million trees will be planted and protected by the year of 2025? One of the main goals of the 2020 SCAP, according to King County Climate Action Team, is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, also known as GHG or GHG emissions. According to King County Action Team, the current goal is to reduce countywide GHG by 50% by 2030 and 80% by 2050. Before going to the specifics of how, let's look at the areas in which they're focusing in to reduce GHG. Now here are some ways in which the city plans of reducing GHG and making initiatives for pro-environmentalism outlined by King County Action Team in the 2020 SCAP. First, on page 21, it claims that the City Council aims to be transparent and hold themselves accountable. By doing so, this means that these government officials are using integrity and honesty to make decisions and take responsibility for any mistakes that are made. Next, as stated on page 44, policymakers aim to develop better analysis techniques and performance measurements to track progress of greenhouse gas reduction. In addition to quantifying performance of their initiatives, this allows policymakers and scientists better understand what technology and processes produce the most GHG in the city of Seattle. On page 55, it talks about how policymakers hope to further develop and advance Seattle's public transportation system. According to the King County Action Team, the city of Seattle can reduce GHG by replacing, quote, remaining hybrid and diesel buses with battery electric buses or electric trolleys. Lastly, according to the King County Action Team, the City Council officials aim to reduce energy use in all existing buildings in King County by 25% by 2030 and 45% by 2050 compared to a 2017 baseline. They plan to do so by A. developing a program to convert oil and propane heated homes to clean sources of energy in partnership with community groups, utilities, and organizations. B. increase landfill gas collection, which can be used as an energy source. And C. develop more green buildings. From these few samples brought, you can clearly see policymakers and government officials are working hard to advocate for the environment while also supporting the citizens of Seattle. Now let's talk about some things that are missing from the plan that we would like to add. As you saw, Seattle has made many efforts in becoming more sustainable. Despite their persistence, there are many improvements that need to be touched base with. Considering how Seattle on its own has such a high population, their main focus was integrating ways to decrease the amount of greenhouse gases. One of the main contributing factors of greenhouse gas emissions in high populated areas are forms of transportation such as cars. According to the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, transportation accounted for one of the largest contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, being at a staggering 27% in 2020. One plan that was missing from Seattle's movement into a more sustainable society in terms of environment was to upgrade infrastructure that contributes to the community's decisions in following their motives to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. While they do have plans to improve the infrastructure for public transportation, there's little that motivates individual citizens to go electric. One idea in such a way would be implementing more superchargers for electric vehicles to make the move to green transportation more viable and appealing to those who have vehicles powered by fossil fuels. According to the NRDC, consumers with electric vehicles consume at least 60% less fossil fuels per year, and with highly populated area like Seattle, a switch to electric vehicles would make a tremendous impact on our environment. With the majority of Seattle being a city environment and big corporations like Amazon moving their main headquarters in, there needs to be social and economic initiatives to ensure that the whole city isn't taken over by skyscrapers and buildings. One way they could do this is to allocate money and land to help create national parks and reserve land by protecting it from being excavated for more real estate. As stated by the National Park Service, national parks can aid as a model for a more sustainable environment in the way they help sustain our natural resources as well as cultural resources.